Hello, everyone, and welcome back to my power ranking series. For my number 23 team, we'll be looking at the Pittsburgh Steelers. All right, so this was a complete retool for this O-line here for Pittsburgh, especially even the QB room as well, now we talk about it. So with these tons of holes to fill, like the Steelers needed to look very externally to bring guys in. So they started bringing guys like Mason Cole now, you see here at center. It was, it's interesting to bring in Cole. The one I'm more interested in is James Daniels, who they brought at right guard. I actually do like him a little bit. I don't mind them. I don't mind either of them. Just the thing that's having me question here is while both these guys are going to have room to grow and they're still fairly young and up and coming players on decent contracts, by the way, they're actually not bad for the team at all. They both really fit a zone scheme, like a heavy zone scheme. So to bring them in here where it is like downhill power running all day long, it's it's a little odd. I'll have to see how it goes. Like Kendrick Green, who they also drafted the year before prior there, they had him playing center. He's another guy who fits very heavy in zone. So I mean, maybe you think the Steelers are looking at moving to more of a zone-based running scheme in the future, but it doesn't really fit for some of the other players they have. You know, they got like Dan Moore. Uh, there is Kevin Dotson. I think Dotson's probably a good enough athlete that he might be able to switch to more of his own scheme and play it. But I'm not overly convinced with Moore. Okafor, who they signed here, to a really hefty contract. It's actually not my favorite contract. Uh, Again, I don't really think he can play it overly well. I'm surprised. I'm surprised with the kind of mishmash of scheme fits they have now in the line. We'll see how they figure it out. Maybe they've got an idea of what to do. So I'll hold my judgment on there for now. I just wanted to note it is weird. The Okafor contract, 3 year, 30 mil. That's just I think it's poor, honestly. I don't think bringing him back's a bad idea. You know, you were a little tight on money anyways. But giving him a deal for 3 years when it should have been a 1 year prove it deal is like that's a huge vote of confidence to have that will blow up in your face if that vote of confidence does not pay off immediately. I don't know why you'd risk it, especially since I think you weren't really competing with anyone to get him either. I also another thing I do want to know is that the lack of depth here on this line does hurt their ranking pretty hard. I think injuries for them across this team as well are going to be a major factor in where they can play and how they can play up to competition. Quarterback, we got two new faces. Dwayne Haskins was here. Rest in peace to him. It was unfortunate his passing, but he's now out of the equation. There is also Mason Rudolph, who's not on your screen anymore, but I don't really think he's going to be a contributor here. So the ones we're going to be talking about are Trubisky and Pickett. Uh, there's some interesting ideas happening inside this organization. So they drafted Pickett in the first round, which is really early. I did not have him ranked nearly that high. So that's a huge vote of confidence as well. That they put into another player that the rest of the league thought very little of this quarterback class. So I imagine Pickett's going to be thrown into the fire pretty early here. The question about him is how is he going to fare in the poor weather, and basically how is his demeanor now switching to an NFL style offense really going to change? I mean, we saw it at the Senior Bowl that he really struggled. Like it looked very poor. So we'll have to watch. He's a hometown guy, so maybe that'll help him a little bit, make him feel a little more comfortable. But I imagine Trubisky here is going to get the start. Trubisky, bit of a better athlete than Pickett. Pickett does need to think that he's calm down a little. I know some guys from college, when they come out, they start trying to scramble everywhere. Then they realize the defense is actually way faster. And Pickett's the worst for that. He bails from clean pockets way too early. So that's yet another thing he's gonna have to correct, and hopefully, having Trubisky take some of the brunt of the early season can help. Trubisky is a quarterback. I'm not expecting much. I don't know if he learned overly much going to Buffalo on the 1 year. It wasn't a bad idea on his part. I just don't expect more than the same play we've saw the last few years. Okay, I mentioned it, but depth does get a little better here. There's Boykin and Anthony Miller, your wide receiver 5 and 6. You could do a lot worse than that. The two rookies that will be getting likely a good amount of starting time here, and Calvin Austin the third and George Pickens. I mentioned Austin early on in draft season that I really liked him, and I like him here as well. He's really just kind of the speed gadget threat. He can be kind of used all over the field, and I think the Steelers do a really good job of developing their wide receivers. They have a very good history of it. So basically, as long as their cornerbacks don't get their real hands on Calvin Austin, I think he'll be fine. He'll fly open. Pickens is supposed to have some issues, personality-wise, that made teams stay away. I have nothing concrete on that, so I won't consider it overly much. I just will state it here. Just I know a lot of teams stated they did not think highly of him after their interview with him. I had him pretty decently rated on my board. He was a second-round prospect. I thought he showed up really well uh, at the combine, despite coming off an injury. He showed up well during the season as well, coming off a major injury. So the fact that he could be a better athlete than what was even shown, I think, is not out of the plausibility. I don't. I like his game. Plays tough. He came from a big school, so he was demanded a lot of, going against high-end competition at corner. I think you expect to see quality play pretty early on for both of them. For your starters, we have Claypool and Deontay Johnson. Both are pretty good wide receivers. They both really have just one major thing that's just kind of holding them back, and I really wish it wasn't. So for Deontay, I mean, we've always heard it. He is a phenomenal route runner. It's just that concentration on catching the ball. I don't know why it's still an issue. Like a lot of the young guys I have noticed have had a concentration issue every now and then. Deontay, it is constant, and I do not know why. So if he just figures that out, there is a great chance of him being a good wide receiver here. Claypool, different kind of build, kind of bullies the small corners, great deep threat, much bigger player. His issue is more on focus than on actual, hand-eye concentration. As there's been a lot of discussion topics on Claypool on his off the field and on field antics. His response losing to the Browns, him celebrating a catch when the ball needs to be spiked, like completely unaware of the clock at all. I mean, you cannot be doing that in a game, and I hope this is the year that stuff is set aside for him, and he really hunkers down. He's got the makings of a wide receiver to stick here for a while. Something, I mean, if he really wants a good mentorship on that, I would call up Larry Fitzgerald and see if he can kind of go through his career and kind of how he got by it, because he was the definition of getting around it. Notable fullback here, Derek Watt, decent blocker, kind of a utility option here for the Steelers. Not as good as some of the guys I've previously mentioned, but honestly, you could do so much worse. I like him on special teams as well. He does lead the blocks here for running back Najee Harris, which does make this offense tick. Harris adds some weight, I heard, which historically is not a good idea, but we'll see. It is a power scheme. Maybe it works out better here. Uh, I am worried about the lack of depth behind him. He really is going to be the only back of talent here. So unless they gain something else in between this time of recording, I don't see much. I do expect some improvement in game plan here with Big Ben's arm strength, kind of depleting over the last couple years. I think having some of the younger guys come in, it should be a little better. And last but certainly not least, I really like Freiermuth. I like Freiermuth a lot. I thought the Jaguars should have taken Freiermuth early second in that draft, and from what I've seen these last drafts and last season, they are sorely missing doing that. I think it was a good fit for the Steelers. They needed someone who's more that do-it-all, like be able to attach to the line tight end. I think you'd be looking to improve on that very solid rookie campaign moving forward here. All right, so this is where the Steelers make their money every year. If you ever wonder why the Steelers can always sneak into the playoffs, you're looking at your team like, why? Why can they make it? You think everyone rates them low and they always make it anyways. This is why. Steelers do very well to develop and invest in their front seven, and they'll spend all money and premium draft capital to make it that way. So let's start with Alex Highsmith, draft pick for the Steelers to take the place of Bud Dupree, another player they spent money on and invested in here. They were rewarded for it. Highsmith has been pretty quality as a player coming off the edge, and he's steadily improved over time. Uh, One of the guys who hasn't done that here, which is kind of atypical, is Devin Bush. He's been kind of consistently just okay at linebacker, very little improvement. I really liked them capitalizing on Jacksonville's kind of weird offseason by grabbing Miles Jack, who still young, has shown improvement, has shown to be a very good middle linebacker. I think that was a great pickup for them, and I think he could even, if they do want to let Bush walk, I think keeping Jack there for the long haul is the best idea they've had at linebacker in a little bit now. Steelers, they kept their nose tackle last offseason in Alualu. He plays just fine for them. I don't really have much to talk about out there other than he can kind of just get big in the middle and fill some gaps, really letting the other guys free up. Another interesting thing is they brought into Marvin Leal here. It was once touted as a first round pick. His kind of lackluster testing numbers dropped him on teams' boards. I think he came to a good spot to develop and further his game. I think, there's like 90% of other teams, I think you could have seen him struggle. Uh, Pairing him with kind of solid run defenders and pass rushers in Cam Hayward and Stephon Tuitt, who I think are premium interior guys. I mean, man, that is an interior to learn and build from. And then on top of that, you throw a top edge rusher in TJ Watt to come off the edge and force the quarterback to step into that pocket, into that pressure. I mean, man, if you run a pro style offense as well that doesn't utilize O lineman in motion or play action enough to keep these guys honest, that's when you see these guys just absolutely go through mayhem. I really like the Steelers front seven here. The only weakness to me is Bush. Defensive backs. Not as good as the front seven, but the front seven can kind of overcome some of these guys' coverage ability by getting to the quarterback fast enough. So this is kind of a strategy that some teams have used back in the day and still use to this day. And it really works pretty well. I mean, the Dolphins were using it. They ran a lot of cover zero, or basically where they send everyone else is manned up in match, and everyone who's not manned up in match is just blitzing. So it works. We've seen defenses have it work. Biggest name here, Minka Fitzpatrick, also speaking on the Dolphins, does play well here. He had a really great first year with the Steelers coming in, and it's been coming slightly down in play. I think it just could be kind of situation. We had a COVID year, then we had, kind of a weird last Big Ben season. So I'm giving him some benefit of the doubt. I still like him a lot as a player. So I think this could be the year he takes that next step back up, gets that star rating for me, and he gets that extension he's looking for. Because he's brought in here for some free safety looks or as a backup. I don't think that's bad at all for the Steelers. Strong safety gets much worse. I really think Edmonds is one of the lower end starting safeties in the league. And I don't think he's proven me wrong since I've had that opinion of him when he was drafted. He still takes poor pursuit angles and he bites a lot on these kind of little, how do I say it? Play action he bites a lot on. He bites a lot on receivers when they do little fake off moves. I mean, half the time he's biting on it too. It's just stuff he shouldn't even bite on anyways. Like it's just not his. His coverage should not be focusing on that, and he bites on it anyways. It just it'll be a shock to me if he suddenly flips a switch and it all fixes right now. But I mean, you saw how strong his offseason or his free agency was. No one was really hawking after Edmonds at all. So I expect the exact same play I've seen the last 4 or 5 years. Joseph here is also here for be a backup. He's okay. Kind of another failed first round pick, but he's stepped up as a backup. Witherspoon was brought in here from Seattle. He struggled to play on the field, and he clearly fits much better here. Very good on the Steelers to bring him back on an acceptable contract. They also have Pierre, but I think Witherspoon's play is better. Bringing Levi Wallace from the Bills is also not a bad idea. He should be able to adjust to their defense all right. He played a lot of off-zone coverage, so coming out, he may be a little slow to start, but I think playing man coverage here, from what I've seen of him on the Bills playing beside Trey White, I think should be completely fine. Sutton, another player here that needs to be mentioned and someone that the Steelers could do a lot worse starting. I just have a question. What is going on with Justin Lane? Like, he was a higher draft pick. I've seen him play and he has struggled, but he is like buried here on the depth chart. I mean, I wouldn't have had him here naturally if he wasn't so buried. Like we're talking like cornerback 7-8 buried. I don't quite know what's going on there. I wouldn't be surprised if they cut or flip him quickly if they really think his play is that poor. It's just a little weird for him to still be here, but they might be giving him a training camp and see how that goes. Just something to mention to keep an eye on as to maybe question why he's so deep on the depth chart to start the season. Special teams, they're all right here. The specials themselves are decent. I like the Harbin selection a lot, and I expect good play to continue. Coordinator wise, things get a little more interesting. Some of the guys in the coaching room are here again, but we do have a change at defensive coordinator now. Smith is taking over, and I think a lot of Steelers fans are happy about that. That we see some change here. I will keep an eye on play calling on defense to see if it improves. I also want to keep an eye on offense. Canada, I think, is a name to watch. He's been criticized a decent bit, but I want to give him a shot now that Big Ben is gone. I think when your quarterback is in that position where their arm is just shot, you really have to make the offense a certain way to get it to behave. So I'm gonna hold my reservations on Canada until I watch him this year. If we see better play calling this year, you knew what happened. If you see the same play calling this year, then you know Canada is just not it. So we'll have to watch this season to accurately assess him as an offensive coordinator. Head coach, we still have a very solid one in Mike Tomlin. I know he's not every Steelers fan's favorite coach, but a lot of other teams would just love and die to have him. He's got a good game knowledge. He's got a good base level of play, going for a huge franchise that's always looked under the microscope. I think he's handled it fairly well, considering what the alternatives could have been as we've seen in the past. All right. So the Steelers are an interesting team. I think they're going to be winning a lot of close games this year. They're going to have to play very possessive on offense and constantly show up on and very tough on defense. Their lack of depth really scares me for injury. Like I just do not like most of the guys they have sitting as depth pieces behind, besides that wide receiver. So I think if you do see a downfall of them, I think it's going to be their depth really hurting them. I do still expect some quality play from the Steelers, and I think they'll win a couple tough games this year that might surprise some people. So with that being said, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all next time. Later.